Hey, look, everybody, I remembered to share my screen with you. Isn't that nice of me? This is something I'm working on right now. I'm just painting. I didn't do this drawing, I'm just painting. All right, and so what I wanted to mention to some of you here is that I've gone back in and put in some zeros where work hasn't been appearing for the last couple weeks. So if you notice that your final score isn't where it should be, it's because I was actually putting grades in there and kind of forcing you to think about doing redos and late and missing work. All right, so this is Victor. Victor, it looks like you have, oh, okay, I see what I did. So I'm doing the horses and people first. All right, so this looks okay. We'll get into this a little bit more specifically and a little bit more precisely today, but this looks okay. Proportions on your figure look a little wide, and I think that once you start listening to how I approach gestures going into life drawing, you'll see that we'll correct some things that are technical mistakes, like this. Your characters are missing a neck, right? Oops, I don't know what I did. All right, and then you've got horses on the bottom here. All right, so that looks about right. Proportions look okay. Okay, and then remember, I had my drawing up there that I posted. So once you lock in the idea of head, volume, body, bean shape, the hithers, the withers, the line of action, and the proportion for all of those, you can start to do thumbnails very quickly, very easily. So yeah, okay, that's good. Thank you, Victor. Lauren Campbell. Okay, good. Yeah, this is an odd view. So you got the 3/4 rear view here. Just a couple of pointers. Whenever you're doing studies like this, you want to try your best to stay away from images that are overlapping each other. I can't get my Zoom thing to respond here. So what I meant by this is that you've got like the left rear hoof right on the hindquarters of this horse, and you do want to plan this better so that your all the parts of the animal, the horse, whatever you're drawing, are on the page. You don't want to run off the page too clearly. And what I was going to say is that even if your reference is showing and you're following the negative space and you're getting the line of action correct and the posture, the pose correct, and this tail is correct from the video reference, you can always pull that tail out and put a little negative space between the hindquarters and the right rear leg. That's always a good thing. And in this drawing here, you could have included the tail. All right, so these are technically correct. The lines are looking a little scratchy. You know what I mean? So try to be more efficient with your lines. I was just working on some examples this afternoon, and I was like, well, mine are kind of scratchy too. but the first one was like a more efficient. So one way to get around this is to draw with a lighter color. If you have that capacity to switch colors or switch densities or even switch opacity, alpha channel on the color, you can scratch all you want, as long as it doesn't like bleed into the final aesthetics. Technically, you want to be as efficient as you can. So these are correct. Proportions look pretty good. Poses look good. Which site did you use to make these, Lauren?
On YouTube, if you type in life drawing examples or life drawing poses or something, there's like some academic university or something that has just like, it'll be like 20 poses or something, and it'll have a timer, and it'll just have
Right.
a bunch of poses.
Yeah.
It'll have different kinds of models that
Yeah.
you can just look at
Yeah.
for free.
Well, I have a couple of them bookmarked and ready to look at today. When we first started doing this using online reference like I was probably doing this 10 years ago. There were maybe 8 or 10 of them, but now there's like 50. Lots of different places are doing them, and I have a couple queued up. So remember that, like, I don't know what's happening with your lines here. Why do your lines look like they're I don't know, I don't even know what to call it, like wires, like springs.
I guess that's just the brush, like the brush I had selected, the type of brush I was using when I was drawing them.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that brush is working. It's really kind of funky. It looks like little bent springs. Yeah, I try to use just a regular brush that would look like a pencil. Okay, thanks, Lauren. Oh, there it is. Okay, Trinity. Okay, so these are looking good. You've got the head, the line of action, the body, the volume, the rhythm. Some of the drawings are overlapping. Always try to place your sketch so that you know you can get all of the parts in there. So you know that you're not compromising a pose by lopping off the feet. Line quality looks good. Power looks good. The weight looks good. Horses look good. Looks like you might have forgot the tail here. In this horse, his head looks a little big. If I'm not an equestrian person by trade, but if I squint at it, the head looks a little big in this drawing. Otherwise, thank you, Trinity. Okay, horse line of action, following my example. Got some bones in there, that's fine. And you're studying these poses. I like the little shading, that helps. But I don't think that it would have been convincing without the correct posture, the correct line of action. Everything looks good. I'm kind of worried about this pose right here. And the reason that I'm worried about this pose is that it looks like a rear view. It looks like I see scapula back here. And so that this character would be facing away from us, which means that if his left leg is bent and maybe the toes are just touching the ground, that means that most of the weight of this character would be on the right leg. And you should always try to direct your line of action, especially if it's a primary, onto the leg that has the weight, because then that's the force. And then if there's a line of action for the second leg, then it takes on a secondary line of action. All right, so that looks good, Annika. Fernando. Okay, good. This in pose character is nice. Line of action kind of falls off the center mark just a little bit. I would have preferred this to be more of a compound curve to bring that line of action so that it was flowing through the head, through the body, and then stop, because I think that once you've got this line of action here, you've got most of the force of the upper body. If you need a line of action for this leg, give it a second one. And if you need one for this one, give it a second one. Don't be afraid to break out the secondary lines of action. Measurements on your primary study look good. I think this scapula might be a little big. I think the location of this first joint to the humerus is a little too far to the front, but that's okay. We're studying here. Okay, these are great. I think that in the whole concept of doing life drawings and studying the life form, there's an offshoot called blind contour drawings. And that's where your live model is off to your right or off to your left, and you only occasionally look at the paper. And that's kind of what these look like here. These kind of look like blind contour drawings. We didn't talk about this at all last week. There's a good purpose to blind contour drawings. And one of those purposes is that you're studying what the hand does with the thing you're drawing with and on. You have to feel that pressure. You feel the connection of the graphite or the charcoal and the paper. In this case, it might be a stylus. And so these tend to look like, these are starting to look like blind contour drawings. I think that because of the number of back and forth, the quality of the line going back and forth across a form, it's starting to look gestural. It's okay, but I think that any more than what you have got would have caused it to look a little too messy. On top of that, your proportions look okay. I would have rather have seen a stronger, more visible line of action. And for however you're doing these, it would have also been better to use a slightly thinner line, more narrow, not quite so fat of a line. But thank you, Fernando. Noah. Yeah, okay, this is kind of funky. I think that the idea was line of action and trying to get the three-dimensional forms in there, like that bean that we were talking about, and the hithers and the withers. That all of that has a three-dimensional form. You can see from my example that I was trying to locate the bony landmarks, measuring the bones, trying to get the thick and thin quality of the bones in there. And I think that you only hinted at it. I would have rather have seen the line of action, the form, rather than just these hinting at the anatomy of the bones. This pose looks okay, but I think that the line of action goes down the middle of the form. So just keep that in mind. What we're doing is we're trying to create a sense of ease of approach in doing the drawing, so that you're studying a spherical portion of the head, getting the conical part of the face, if it is one, or if it's a pyramid or some sort of rhombus, connected to a cone for the neck. And then what is the body form? A lot of what we're doing looks like a bean. You can see that I even posted a bunch of stuff on, oops, I didn't want to do that, on the storyboard board that speak directly to the actual bean shape. Like this one I posted the other day of the bean shape of a bear. You know, that works just brilliantly. I think that in these drawings right here, you see more of a three-dimensional kind of anatomy being applied, which is fine. And here's the technical bean shape working as an animator is drawing the character for what looked like maybe a Roger Rabbit, but they're drawing a bean shape. I thought there was another one. Well, this one I posted 10 days ago, and we talked about this one last week. So just remember that that bean is ubiquitous, whether it's a lima bean or some typical bean, or like in this drawing of the coyote here, whether it's a banana. You know, it can be lots of different things right there. All right, and so these gestures, I think you're missing the line of action. You know, I can see a center line here, but you're missing the line of action, and we'll continue to talk about this for the next couple of weeks because it drives the form. The line of action drives the weight, it drives the pose. All right, thank you, Noah. Chloe? Okay, measurements on the horses looks good. Line of action looks okay. Proportions look okay. The neck might be a little long. I think you might have a little bit of extension between the ribs and the hindquarters where the pelvis is. You know, sometimes it helps to just do like I did and draw those bones in there. This pose looks okay. It looks like you're studying it pretty well. There's also something that's kind of like popping in my eye, and that is that it looks a little forced. It looks like you were struggling with it just a little bit. The idea is to let it come out of your hand and flow, and not be struggling with it so much. This form looks okay. And we'll talk about the actual direction of the line of action, because this direction is not correct. It's there, but it's not correct. All right. Same thing. I think that that's why we're doing this study here. I'm going to give you this week to kind of just try it and figure it out, but then we're going to lock it in. We're going to be a lot more precise about it today. All right. Thank you, Chloe. Yeah, careful of your measurements. These look good, but we're going to work on your measurements. Oops. Ryan. Okay, a little bit scratchy, a little bit messy, but there's form in there. It's kind of what I was looking at. If you squint at your primary horse here, there's two errors that are just catching my eye. And one is that the sphere that makes up the head is much too big. And remember that there are different horses out there. And if you wanted to, you know, play with some variety or some species of horse that just was like amazing, then you were welcome to try that. But to me, to my mind's eye, this head looks a little big. And so too does the volume on the right front upper leg. It's quite big. You've got this line pointed almost horizontally, which makes the volume of the leg incorrect. I mean, it's not just an optical illusion. It's just too fat right there. You know, remember we talked about how skinny horses' legs are, and that's another comment. But try to be more economical with your lines. Try to just be a touch more economical, and if you need to, and you can use a lighter or a more transparent line, that always works too when you're studying the actual pose. Your in pose looks good. This looks fine. The gesture looks pretty good. The measurements in this one look better. Okay, and these are okay. I think you've got the idea. The line of action is not quite as precise in some of them, but you're getting the idea. All right, thank you, Ryan. Ria. Okay, good. These are nice studies. It's good to have the reference when you're studying. And you did twice as two times. Oh, I see what you did. You copy and paste it. Okay. Yeah, okay, I'll buy it. They're good studies. Line of action. I think you're missing the line of action in your action pose. I think that's one of the things that we're going to drive all the way home in the next couple of weeks, is really studying that line of action. Proportions look a little funky right there, but that's okay. It looks like you fixed it in this drawing. Yep, okay, the horses look okay. All right, these are good. I want more of a defined line of action. The poses are good, but as soon as we talk about exaggerating the expression or exaggerating the pose, you'll need to push that line of action. So yeah, these are good. I like the economy of the line. It's nice. All right, thank you, Ria. Okay, so one thing that just strikes my eye here is that you're starting to develop a little bit of a style here, and unless this is really locked down, I would caution you to go with the inverted pyramids or the inverted triangles on top of each other. It is true that the human form often takes on an hourglass kind of shape to it, but let's work with more organic things like beans to reference from, or pickles or gourds or something like that, because they tend to be more three-dimensional and they're not quite just some flat anatomy. I think that could be the case here in this critique, is that these are looking a little flat because I don't see that 3D quality. Proportions are close. I think that I made a comment last week that try to keep your drawings about 8 inches tall, and I think these are looking like they're more 3 or 4 inches tall, and so they're just a little small, especially like this one right here. All right, this horse's legs are kind of short. And it's one thing about horses that they have very long legs, so just check your measurement again. And remember
I struggled a lot. Oh, I apologize. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, I struggled a lot. So you see the smaller one, like,
Yeah,
I didn't even draw the legs. I was just to like finally see the shape of the body.
right. Well, if we
It
look
was
at
really
this
hard.
one, if we look at this one again, I didn't do that. I did the measurement for like the tail, but in my mind, I was like measuring the length of the bones, and I'm pretty sure that what I had done was started the main form of the body, this bean shape right here, in the middle of my paper. So this is 8.5 by 11. And then I sent the line of action, and I did this with just regular pencil, right? So I'm just like, I'm drawing as big as I could possibly draw. And from my reference, I noticed that from the bottom of the chest to the place where it hit the ground was about the same as the height of the whole form. You know, it's just a little more. And then once I locked that line down right here, I decided to give myself a vanishing point, a single point perspective, draw that little square where his feet are standing on. It makes sense. And then go in and draw the head, the line of action for the head, the line of action for the feet, the line of action for the legs. And that was just my approach to studying it. I think that measuring it is a big deal, and seeing the measurement in your eyes is something that you just want to keep training yourself to get better at for whatever you're drawing. The better you can do that, the better you can just draw anything just by looking at it. You just look at it once and then you can draw it. All right, thank you, Mitzi. Nada. Okay, the proportions, measurements look okay. The tail's kind of tucked in there. The lines are looking a little messy. Be more economical with those lines. Even in my pencil lines, you can see that I was studying very lightly. And then as soon as I was more convinced, then I laid it more heavily on the line. And it adds to an aesthetic. Where I think that you might have been struggling with this just a little bit. Technically they're close and correct, but try to be more economical with the line. All right, so these are okay. I've seen this drawing online before, and I think that you're getting a good flow. You're getting a good sense of rhythm with the line of action, changing directions. So you pick some good poses. And these drawings have a good economy of line. These have a good economy of line. They're pretty good. Yeah, I like these. And so now you all know how that horses can be really hard, right? All right, thanks, Nada. May. Yeah, you might have got yourself into one of those poses that's either got a strange camera lens on it or the photograph was just a little odd, but the legs look a little short. I think that we'll talk about this today and next week and the week after, just about how to properly foreshorten anatomy, or even just picking a better reference pose. You've got the negative space between the rear legs, but the negative space between the front ones is collapsed just a little bit. You're trying, got that line of action in there, and I would rather see a study on the volumes of the forms, the spheres for the head. You're close. I think this study is a little closer. Now, hopefully you did this one first.
I did, yeah.
Okay. All right, your human studies look okay. And don't be afraid, everyone, don't be afraid to just send that line of action. Just be bold with it. Try to see the line of action in every single pose and every single person you see on TV, online, in real life. We all have a line of action. So yeah, I think this is working pretty well. Thank you, May. Randy. Okay, watch your photography. I'm really picky about this. You're presenting, so get multiple light sources. I think you're presenting too big, and I can't make this smaller. So, you know, I don't want to have to kind of just dodge around here. And then just be more economical, more precise with your lines. We choose an olive or a football shape for a head because it's more indicative of the human head rather than just a sphere, an olive or a grape, something like that. So my intuition is telling me that you're just maybe making these poses up on the top of your head. Randy? Randy, were you exploring these poses just randomly, or were you using reference?
No, I used a reference.
You were using reference?
Yeah, I did the whole YouTube thing.
I see. Try to switch out your approach. I know that like one of the teachers at the school I was working at for a long time was doing like the ball and socket method of life drawing. And it would be like the Tinker Toys. It would be like trying to make your bones with Tinker Toys. And it's just like it's the most remedial way to approach life and form and drawing. And I don't know if you were doing that. I think that, you know, I see these little circles for the deltoids and kind of the circles that make up the exterior part of the pelvis. But there's a better way to do this. I worry that you started a bad habit. So when we start our lecture today, pay attention to the process. Where do I start? How do I know when the drawing is technically done? All right, and once again, just work on your presentation. I think the PDFs should be able to fit in the window here. All right, so this horse is in motion. I think you're missing a joint. You're missing the pelvis, femur. I think you're missing a bony landmark here. And in the front and the back legs. I think you oversimplified the legs just a little bit. The line work looks okay. The efficiency and the economy of the lines look okay, but the anatomy is just a little off. Picking a photo reference of a horse like this, it may have been better to try to find an image where all four legs were visible so that they weren't foreshortening each other. Yeah, your anatomy is a little off here. This head is too big. You know, always give it the squint test. The head's a little big and the body's not big enough. The horses have big bodies. I remember last week, I reminded everyone to not pay too much attention to that spine because it's very detailed and it is right on the edge. But remember that there's an S shape. There's an S shape to the bones in the neck. All right, it's close. Again, work on your presentation. Thank you, Randy. Rachel. Okay, the line work looks good. I think the legs are too short. You know, even by a little bit, and then the horse looks funky. Whenever you're doing this, one of the things that an artist can do is turn your drawings upside down, turn them backwards, turn them against the light, put them up against a window just to get a different look at it. But I think that that's one of the hard things about a horse is that their legs are really skinny. You know, there's very few muscles down here in the hoofs and lower legs. It's just all bones and cartilage and ligaments. You know, if you cover that up, the top part looks good, but the legs are just a little short. This looks okay. Looks like you got reference. It looks like you spent some time on it. It looks good. All right, these are okay. Looks like you're actually using charcoal or some sort of black pencil.
Yeah, I started out with charcoal and then I just started using like a hard or like a softer pencil.
Yeah, I forget the brand that I was using. Let me grab it. Well, my buddy. Oh yeah. So we had done a couple of things. We were working with China markers because it's impossible to erase China marker, and charcoal ends up being really messy, and you got to draw really big. And then we learned that Glenn Keane had done an interview with the San Francisco Chronicle in like 1998 or something like that. And the interviewer asked him what pencil he was drawing with, and he said, "Oh, well, I'm using a Blaisdell layout pencil." And then everyone at the studio was trying to find this Blaisdell layout pencil. And it just so happened that the company was like either going out of business or had stopped making them a while ago, and Glenn bought up the last ones. And we couldn't find a Blaisdell layout pencil for years. And then one day I realized I had one. And basically what it is, it's a thin China marker. China markers are really fat. They're waxy. You could draw on pottery. You could draw on anything. The only thing you can't draw on is mud. you know, and they're great because they're so fat that you have to always draw big. If you're doing a life drawing, you're set for 18 inches tall, and you're using your whole arm. You can't just noodle with your wrist. And then we discovered that the Blaisdell layout pencil was a China marker, but the little wax was about half the thickness. And so it allowed you for a more thinner, more precise line. And but the company had stopped making them. And so one of the things was these Prismacolor, black Prismacolors. And they're pretty waxy, they're pretty black. They're everywhere. You can find them. You can't erase them. They're really waxy. And so everyone was doing their keyframes with those and some of their life drawing. All right, so one of the things that you always want to do if you're going to try charcoal is to really nail down a process that is conducive to what you're doing. I know that I might have mentioned Mike Matese last week, and his stuff is phenomenal. I mean, it's really great. But he has just this really advanced way of doing the line of action for the head and the neck and the torso and the leg and the lower leg all at once. And it's just really hard. And he can do it. He can pull it off. I think I might have shown you the stuff that he's been posting on social media and making a comment about his school. Charcoal is like one of the hardest things to draw with. The only thing that would equal it is watercolor. So if you can, just stick with a regular pencil. You can define the lines just a little more, and it's not quite so messy. And then on top of that, then go to your willow, and then go to your 4B charcoal after that. All right, these are okay. And we'll continue working on these. Thank you, Rachel. Moses. All right, to me, it looks like you did the drawings in pencil. And you can stick up for yourself if you want.
It was all digital.
It was all digital.
Yeah.
Okay, so to me, it looks like you might have tried to put in the red lines of action last. You started with maybe the gray, and then it looks like you tried to make sure that everyone could see your line of action, but you put those in last.
Yeah.
So don't do that.
Okay.
Because the line of action is the thing that drives your form. It's the thing that you need to draw first.
I did have a lighter sketch line of action under the red one.
I see it, the gray.
That's just me.
But like in this pose, if we wanted to argue, it looks like you drew the gray so that it went all the way out here first. And then you kind of redirected it.
Yeah.
I think it's close. I think the drawings are getting there. But you just want to have a better command of the line of action rather than just making sure it's in red and you're not going to get yelled at for not doing it. It's an actual industry standard process, step in the process for putting together any kind of drawing. So like for instance here, the line of action for the horse that you drew in purple is correct, but I'm not buying the red one. You know, what is this line indicating? Remember we talked about how the horse doesn't have a lot of flexibility between its front and its back end. And so I think that this is technical incorrect, that both of these. If you wanted to discover a line of action that drives each leg, then let the line of action live for each leg. And we'll talk about like how in a human pose, you can see me on the monitor, that a lot of times when you're drawing a key pose for a human form, that there's a flow between the line of action of the right and the left arm. And then you can get like a flow to work between them. But this to me isn't working. The other one is close, but the one on top isn't quite working. And I'm not going to hold it against you, but I think that you just want to be economical about all the steps in your process. You got to draw fast. You can't waste too much time. Thanks, Moses. All right, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to refresh this. And I'm going to go, did anyone post while we were talking?
I was.
Emma. Hello, Emma. How are you? Oh, but
I'm good.
I just refreshed this, but there's nothing there. All right, let me go back to the module. I don't see it, Emma. Did you put it in the right place? Or did you lie to me?
I uploaded it to Sketchbook for 9th March.
Oh, I know, but we're going to look at that next. But I was looking for horses and people.
Let's No. We are not done with that one.
All right, so we'll just go through this quickly here. This is Victor, sketchbook drawings. He's drawn a little cartoon for us. All right. Remember that you're allowed to do whatever you'd like for your sketchbook. Lauren? Okay, nice. Studying a little shading, character, life drawing, hands. Okay, I'll buy it. Thank you, Lauren. Trinity? Sideways. Make sure your presentation, Trinity. And your lighting. Make sure that you get multiple indirect light sources. Remember we talked about this in week 1. The drawings are okay. It's really great to study the details of facial features, eyes, noses, lips, face, ears. It's all part of what we're learning. Make sure you're presenting these correctly. Trinity, I would highly suggest you rename your file.
Oh,
You're going
I
to
forgot
lose
to.
points. So
Sorry about that.
So rename it and rotate it correctly and resubmit it before I do points, or I'll shave off some points from you.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. Annika. Okay. Studying these a little closer. Economy of line, studying fashion, studying period pieces, okay? Okay. Thank you, Annika. Fernando. Okay, yeah, you can't go wrong doing this. Your female figure looks really muscular. Lots of foreshortening going on in there. Okay, these are great for journal drawings. Thank you for Fernando. Measurements look good too. Noah. Yeah, you know, one thing that I would like to just say is that you've got hands and feet that are very stylized, and you can see that you're starting to want to apply that stylization to your character design. And I don't think you're wrong. I think that what you may want to do is just kind of consider, you know, these bent fingers are looking pretty gnarly. You know, and so what are you drawing? Are you drawing these to portray a witch or just a very old woman? You know what I mean? You know what I mean, Noah? So an example of that would be is if you just do kind of what we did here. Let me see if he's got stuff on Pinterest. All right, so like just with this image here, you can see the hand study, right? You can see what Robert is doing with the fingers and the hands. Everything's elongated. Everything's really just complete stylization of all forms. And he doesn't have a lot of stuff on social media, but you can see that there's a similarity there. And everything that I'm clicking on, you can see that he's just exaggerating the forms of the hand. So what I would suggest is to just take the right path, study the human anatomy really precisely, really accurately, and then exaggerate it. It'll look better. I promise you. I promise you. I promise you. Chloe. Okay, these are great. Excellent studies. Can't go wrong with that. Making sure I have credit for this. Thank you, Chloe. Careful of the shadow. Remember, one of the reasons why I keep bugging everyone about proper orientation and good lighting is because, you know, in the end of the class here, I might say, okay, everyone, I want a portfolio from you. I want you all to load up these to a multi-page PDF and give me a portfolio. And then I'm going to give all the portfolios to Paul and say, okay, here's the spring show. You know what I mean? So if there's drawings in there that are photographed with a big shadow or big two shadows on it, then you're going to go have to back and reshoot those. So just get into the habit of good photography as you're going along. Yunwei, yep, this is always great. Studying the details, yep, we can't go wrong studying hands. Thank you, Yue. All right, Yue, I didn't see your horses. All right. Oh, my chat's turned off. Sorry, everybody. Ryan. Okay. You're studying the next generation of Pokemon characters. Yep, can't go wrong. Just keep having fun with it. Thank you, Ryan. Ria. This is interesting. Did you want to mention anything about this?
It's kind of like a scene between some characters. They're like trying on new outfits.
Uh-huh.
It might be hard to see right now, but they're kind of on a stage at like a tailor's shop.
I see that, yeah. Now,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it's for a project you're working on.
Not really. No, it's not.
Okay,
It's some of my
It's
characters.
interesting. I think that it's a nice way to study.
Yeah.
Okay, these are good little, taking a sketch and then studying it with different
Different color
different colors
compositions.
applied to
Yeah.
it. It's great. And this is excellent. You could do this for the rest of your life and get paid to just do color scripts and layouts like this. This is great. Or did you do this for like John or Paul or David here at the university?
No.
Where did you learn how to do this from? This is great.
YouTube video.
No, this is great. So if I could just coach you just a little bit.
Yeah, go for it.
There is one thing that you can do to make this just completely and totally freakishly awesome. And that is that you can treat these as just your first pass, right? You know, you did it, done. Then do a second one where you've figured out where your focal points are. So there's no focal point right here, right? So these are the cinematic thirds. And
Yeah.
so concentrate, and you know what I mean by cinematic thirds?
Yeah, you
So you
break down
divide up your
thirds.
vertical and your horizontal stage into thirds. And those are your first technical focal points. And so if you've got a focal point, and it's fine, you're allowed to have focal points in different places. So concentrate the amount of contrast on the focal point. I don't know why this isn't drawing. So there should be the maximum amount of contrast on those focal points. Like for this one, we can see that there's something here, but I think that you might want to put like a little glow around it or something, because these lines are pointed towards it, but then there's not enough contrast here. So you're getting there with this one. This is okay. You know, and so always pay attention. Your focal points can be on the cinematic thirds. Your focal points can be in the center, and they could be really kind of anywhere around, anywhere around the layout. I think that if you're Wes Anderson, you're going to put things in the middle. Remember that if you've got really strong element here, that you can start to think like a line of action with your layout, and maybe make this mountain range just a little smaller in the background so that you've got more of a flow. You've got this and this and this. And so the closer to camera, the thing should have more detail. The midground, less detail. And what you've got here is called atmospheric perspective. Have you ever learned this?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Okay, so you can tell. All right, so just kind of work on, and let me see if I know that I did this. Oh, I can't, hold on a second. I know that I had clicked on and saved a compositional thing, but it was a while ago. I think this one will get you closest to it. So, and again, I think that this social media thing is just, it's really helping in a lot of different ways, because not only does it have just a ton of stuff on it, but things are actually coded so that you're getting all the reference. So this is a good way of thinking about your composition, right? And so if you want to just do your original sketches, now go back and think about, you know, skewed lines, triangular compositions, focal points. You can use the golden mean, but then look at all the other stuff that's coming up, like all the different ways you can approach the composition. Like this one right here is just like, it's so simple that, and because of that, it's just, you know, you almost want to say, I'm going to save this to my storyboard. So that's my 2 cents, and thanks for letting me Click that in there. All right, this looks like you did this from last week. Are these new ones?
Yeah, I make a lot of
So does
them.
this character have a name?
Yeah, his name's Bing Bing. It's like a little duck.
A little duck.
Yeah.
Keep going. You're having fun with it. That's the whole.
Yeah, I make a lot of
That's the
them.
whole point. Okay, thank you, Emma. Yep. Oh, okay. I'll buy this. You're allowed to do whatever you want in your sketchbook. Lots of action. Lots of action, and I think the only thing that doesn't match is that he's moving his sword all over the place, and you've got just a neutral expression on him. Just make him mad, make him furious.
I was struggling a lot with him.
All right, did you do, are your horses in here too?
No, I'm still working on those.
You're still working on it. Okay, thank you, Emma. Mitzi. All right, do you put both? You put your studies in both places. This is your sketchbook. Nada. Okay, these are fun. Illustrative. Poses are good. Studying the color, studying style, that's good. May. Okay, yes, yes, I'll buy it. Some good work in there. Don't stop doing this. You're having fun with it. Keep doing that. Excellent. Kai. Don't present drawings that are sideways. No, I always just check the name. And you're got a hotspot here, so even though this is your sketchbook and you're allowed to draw whatever you want, study the photography part of this. Get an even sense of lighting. Turn the flash off on your phone. Multiple indirect light sources. You got a big hotspot. This is the most impossible thing to try to fix in Photoshop. So you get credit for the drawing and the presentation, but I'm probably going to ask you to make a portfolio of some kind. So get your photography into a better, more professional place. Thank you, Kai. Randy. Poster drawings so I don't have to turn them. You're all in big trouble. Okay, this is good for studying. Pay attention to the things that we're going to talk about today for measurements and proportion and negative space and bony landmarks, because we're starting life drawing today. So hopefully you'll be able to take away a few things that will improve even your sketchbook stuff. Thank you, Randy. Rachel. Yes, excellent. Yes. Perfect. Thank you, Rachel. Moses. Sure, why not? These are fun. One thing that I would like you to try, though, are you listening? Okay. Did you do these in Photoshop?
Yeah.
So color on a different layer, right? And then use the move tool and just move the whole color off to the right or left or top or bottom just a little bit. And you don't have to fill it precisely. I think you're on that same stylistic page, but it might improve just the aesthetic, because this cat is an interesting drawing, but I think that the pink is just a little too big for his head. And so color him a little more precisely and then move it like it was a printing mistake for a comic book. All right, thank you, Moses. It's good to see the economy of line, just getting a dinosaur, which is 6 lines. It's great. All right, take a break, take 15 minutes, and we're going to start life drawing when you come back. So what I wanted to do is just let you all know that I did a couple of things. One is I just put the sketchbook drawings in for next week. Those will be due on the 16th of March. And then I also put in the life drawing assignment here, which I'll explain over the next hour. And it's weighted, it's 400 points. So, you know, I didn't put any directions in there. It's just there. If anyone needs to, you can go back and look at the recording. But one of the things I wanted to say about our class is that I also put a link in the discussion area for the 4 of the websites that we're just going to look at and use today. And so, yeah, those are in the discussion area. And it should be, where are they? At the top. It's the top of the discussion area. All right, so there's a couple of things that we want to talk about as we get into the first part of life drawing. The first is, what are you drawing? For the most part, I think that this week I'd like you to stick with an adult male or adult female proportions. You can tell by just looking at this particular Google search here that you can, in fact, do life drawings for children and babies and animals and all of that. And you can tell how old someone is by the proportion of their head. So if you study this and you just kind of look at this drawing, I'm not going to click on this because I don't want all the other stuff to go away. But a child who is maybe 6 or 7 years old might well be 4 heads tall. If a child who's just 2 could be 3 heads tall. And the same thing with a baby, they just might be 2.5 heads tall. So it's up to you as the artists to study what the actual proportion of head to overall height is. You can see here that this artist is making a reference to Vitruvian Man. Remember, that's Da Vinci. And Da Vinci is using one of his architect comrades, his name was Vitruvius, to set into play the measurements of the human body and studying the proportions and all that goes into the median of what the average man or the average woman might measure out to in terms of head tall. So there's a couple of things we wanted to start with. In this example here, you can see that this reference person is just saying, well, this human is 8 heads tall. And I think that's a good place for you to start your eye. In this example, which I'm actually going to click on, now this was done by Andrew Loomis. And Andrew Loomis was a advertising artist. He was an illustrator. He did stuff for magazines and printed media from the 30s and 1940s, early 50s. And his drawings are just fabulous. When I first started learning animation, like way back in 1991, 92, 93, there were a whole bunch of people at Colossal Pictures who just completely, totally dismissed Andrew Loomis. And for one of the reasons why they dismissed him was because here we are studying the proportions of a man, and he's saying 8 heads tall, and you know that's a good place to start. You know, this is another example of understanding how precise Andrew Loomis's work was. But then look at this stupid drawing. This woman is measuring out to 8 heads tall, but she's got high-heeled shoes on. I'm like, wait a minute, what's wrong with this? And so when I was learning animation, the very first teachers, my very first artists teachers, completely dismissed Andrew Loomis. And I think that they were correct in saying that a woman should not be measured heads tall if she's wearing even any kind of shoes. When you're doing life drawing, it should just be nude. And you should be studying the precise measurements of the human form. And this is just wrong. This is male chauvinism. This is sexism. It's practically white elitism. And so, like I said, we dismissed this for a long time. This looks like Andrew Loomis. So just as we were talking about before, he's got great drawings. He's got the great study of heads tall, going from 8 to 6 to 5 to 4 to 3 heads tall. This is great. This is exactly what you need as an artist. But you don't need as an artist is the representation of a woman in precise anatomical measurements wearing high heels. It's wrong. It's just absolutely forbidden. And so that was Andrew Loomis. And if I'm not going to change the thing here, but you can always go back in there and study for yourself. Now, he doesn't do it all the time. The stuff that he's doing here with measurements and different headlines and stuff like that, this is all actually very precise. And so remember that you want to look at, but you want to be critical of it. And that was in the Google search that I put there for you. All right, so, and then the second thing that I put in there was, well, one of them was the references just from Pinterest. I think that once again, you're getting just a lot of really great poses. People from all over the world are contributing to this, so it's good. And we'll talk about what to look for in poses. How to look at this and say, this pose right here, it's there, it's showing good weight and good balance, but it's not going to make the best drawing. A pose like this, where it's very high contrast, almost to the point of chiaroscuro, or even it just left my head. It may not make the best life drawing, because in this pose right here, everything is foreshortened. Her hand is covering up her leg, the lower leg is covering up the upper leg is completely obscuring her body. Those are obscuring her arm. It's like everything is covering up everything. It's a great pose, it's a great photograph, but in terms of anatomical studies, it may not be the best. So, and remember that I'm doing this right now just as a critical analysis for you to understand how to pick the best images. The next thing that we need to talk about is motion. I've put a couple of websites in there, and one of them is the Sketch Daily. So we're just going to say all. We're going to say this is going to be nude poses. We're going to say all poses, and we're going to say 30 seconds. We're going to say start. And once you do this, this pose is going to be up on the screen for 30 seconds. All right, so after 30 seconds, it's going to go away. Now I can pause this and I can go back and say, let's study this for 5 minutes and say go. And we're going to get a different pose. Now, I didn't want this. I wanted, so you're going to have to change this every time you do it. So let's say 5 minutes, because if we're really just studying it, what you also could do in this website is just go to the next pose. I don't need the drapery. I think the classical poses are the best. And the classical poses, and we're just going to let that play in the background. The classical poses are the ones where the life model is static. He or she is not moving around very much. And there's a reason for this, because it's very difficult to lock down the proportions and study the anatomy and bony landmarks and the precise contours, the precise lines of action underneath the contours if the character is moving around. But in a pose like this, this woman is in motion. And so there's some good silhouette here. You can see both arms, both legs very clearly. She's not balanced. And these poses over here, it would be very, very difficult to hold this pose on the middle bottom for more than just a moment. So this series of photographs, even though she's got some sort of clothing on, might be appropriate because it's showing dynamics. Whereas most of the poses that we're going to study are static. And so remember, there's a big difference between seeing what static poses look like and studying and measuring and doing the anatomy of the life drawing and ones that are in motion. You want the in motion ones eventually, but for this week, let's stick with poses that are mostly static. And you can tell that by, is the weight contained? If the woman or man is standing on one foot, is the weight balanced on that one foot? And you can see that this one is not. You can see that these are. And so that's the next thing, is you're looking for nude figures that are static. This one, the shadow is obscuring the exposure. She's got a dress on, so I'm not sure where her anatomy is, so this would not be appropriate. This woman is in the air. You know, it's a great pose, but let's stick the ones this week that are static. All right, and then we're running out, so I'm going to go backwards here. And remember that this is just social media, and so you can use this, but I want you finding poses that are static and that have good silhouette, and there's not a lot of foreshortening. Remember that foreshortening is just like I'm doing right now in the preview window. You know, these are more difficult poses to draw. They're nearly impossible to measure. They're hard to critique as an instructor. So let's stay with ones that are more mid-range. This pose right here is good, but she's got to be in motion. All right. All right. So, and we can see that this is, I guess this is paused. All right. And we're going to go fast forward to this one. So, you know, this is interesting in terms of a pose. I might pass on this because I don't want to draw that chair. If everyone's listening. So what I'm doing is I'm giving you some skills here to pick good poses. All right, so we've got in this pose, the analysis is that her body is foreshortening her entire left arm. The clothing obscures the form. The feet are okay, but there's probably just a little too much there. All right, so this isn't a good pose. You know, I want you to think about this in terms of how you might draw a character. I just don't like this pose at all. This pose is okay. You know, I could do this one. Let's keep looking. There's a lot of foreshortening happening in this pose right here. So let's pause this and go back. And let's say we're going to do both genders. I want nude. I want all the poses, but let's say stationary. Let's say all views. And let's just put this at 5 minutes just to keep going with our critical analysis. This one's okay. You know, I could very easily just block in this form here, this little cushion that's right there. It's sort of a classical form. I can see a nice silhouette. There's daylight between her feet, her lower legs, and the ground plane. So this is a good pose. All right. So we could just leave that sitting there for a second. Let's go to this one. And again, this is line of action. So what do I want to draw? I want to draw only nude models. I want both males and females. I want adults, all the same length. Class mode, I just keep it all the same length. Interval, and again, we're just going to leave this at 5 minutes because you can probably fast forward through this one as well. So this is interesting here. This Bridgman's book is really good in terms of a mid-level life drawing book. Just caught my eye. That one's a good one. Remember that the Matesi Force books are very advanced. All right, so this is great. So I like this website. This has got a good silhouette. There's good daylight here. There's good anatomy. There's good balance. This thing that she's sitting on is very easy to draw. And so we could just even start with this one as just a quick little study. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over to my drawing, which is in harmony, and I'm going to tab back and forth between this. So what I'm looking for here is the head and the line of action. I can see that there's an hourglass or a bean shape just right there. So I've got my thing set up here. So I'm just going to set the head and I'm going to look at it. The direction of the line of action, it's an S shape. So I'm just going to draw that S shape. And I'm going to try to get that attack. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to locate the attack on her shoulders. So her shoulders are pointed in this kind of direction. It's about a 45-degree angle. And it looks like she's obscuring her neck, right? She's got her head, kind of her shoulders pushed up around her neck. And so this bean shape is going to look something like this. And if I was doing this with pencil, I would try to be just a little bit more efficient with my lines. But this is about the amount of economy of line that I would like. So remember, a lot of times when our measurement, we do want to allow for that neck, but in this pose, we don't have it. The next big thing that you want to do here is just look at the length of the head to the length of the entire torso that you've drawn. So I've got the length of the head and the length of the torso. So be precise here. You don't want it to be too big or too small. You know, this negative space here between the back is important. All right, so then we see that this arm is not straight up and down, that there's her knee and both arms are kind of joining themselves in this portion on that little stool that she's got right there. And so you want to locate that stool. So I'm just going to put like a little mark right there just to identify it at first. Remember that it is about 5 degrees from the deltoid. This is the deltoid. So I can just draw that deltoid in very lightly. And then I could draw just now this is, the line of action here is really kind of straight. So I'm just going to kind of give it a slight curve. And then the other arm comes from the other side. So the deltoid is over here and it joins right there. All right, so then we're going to locate this mass of her glutes, and her femur is going to just have an outside curve and it's joining about right there. So what we're looking for is this triangular space right here. And I can see that we're kind of getting at it. It's kind of accurate, and I'm just kind of drawing very lightly here because there is a little daylight right there. So when we start drawing this arm, deltoid, humerus, I want you to be thinking ulna and radius and where is the elbow, and just drawing the elbow very lightly or as a bony landmark, and connect the deltoid with an outside curve, inside, outside curve to the elbow. Look at the straightness of the line that is the ulna muscle, and then just kind of get that in there, and then do the top. And there's a strange little pose she's got on her arm. Remember that arms get thinner as they go towards the hand. All right, then you do the same thing with the away arm, but let's foreshorten this. Her breast is right here. So there's a little bit of daylight right there. All right, and then locate the hip joint. So the hip joint is like, this is a 45-degree angle this way. All right, and you might want to get your eraser out and just kind of fix this portion of the anatomy just a little bit. The Toon Boom's catching up with me here. Okay, so again, what we're doing is we're looking at the bones. We're looking at the femur as the biggest bone in the body. And from that, we see that there's a mass and there's a volume right here. And so that you can just draw that in there, and then that guides you to where the quads are. And so the quads is always an outside curve to the femur, and then there's always an inside curve to where it connects to the body. So let's take a look at, oh, we got a new drawing already. Let's see if we're allowed to go backwards. We're not allowed to go backwards. So, you know, that was 5 minutes. And the line of action for this leg would be here. And then you would have to kind of pencil in that stool just a little bit. And remember, it's always a good idea to draw the connection points for the wherever the 4-point sits on the ground. So even though I was trying to be just a little didactic about this, we got most of that pose in there. All right, so this one's only got 4 minutes. This is a decent pose as well. So for this one, what we would do is we would just say, again, head. So as soon as you draw the head, the rest of the measurements come into play. Her line of action is this way. So I'm just going to draw this line of action like that. See it? It's just like, it's right there. Her shoulders are here and her hips are contraposto. So they are opposite of each other. Her bean, her pillow shape is very much like this. And then measure head tall to how big the torso is. So it's pretty close right there. Get the line of action for the femur, her left femur, her left femur and her right femur, and find the bony landmarks for where her patellas are going to be. So her patellas would have this kind of action, this kind of relationship to each other. Find the action where her breasts are lining up and draw that in there too. So you want as much of analysis as you can. Her body is foreshortening her arm. And then there's her glute is nice and pronounced here. So let that glute ride right into the hamstrings, quadriceps. And then keep building the pose. This line of action for her arm here is rather straight. I think we might have narrowed the shoulders just a little bit too much. So get the deltoids in there correctly. Plot out all these points. Make sure that the measurements are correct. What you're looking at is correct in anatomy, correct in negative space, and trying to get the correct measurements just as a gesture. Right, so remember that I set this at 5 minutes. It's got 2 minutes left. So I got most of the pose already. You could start going back in there and really refining the left quad, really kind of finding your landmarks. What does this negative space look like between her glute and her lower right leg? And blocking this in so that I knew if I was going to draw a line between her head, her shoulder, and her foot, that this imaginary line and her foot is going to stick out just a little bit from that. And this imaginary line has an angle to it. This imaginary line on the right has a certain look to it so that when I start putting the anatomy in for her hand here, that I've actually got it in the right place. When you start really refining this, draw in the clavicles, draw in the sternum, and then you can place the breasts more properly. All right, so this one's got 1 more minute. So you've got this idea here, and I want you studying the gesture first. I want you looking at the outside, inside curves. Remember that to the bone, anything that's away from the bone is an outside curve. Going towards the bone is an inside curve. All right, so you can set like I said, you can set these at 5 minutes, but the best time duration for an animator is 1 minute to 30 seconds. But it's okay to study the 1 minute gesture for 5 minutes, just to make sure that you're getting proper measurement. All right, and then remember too that the things that are important become this negative space. So when you're doing this, and you place that breast in the right place, it's overlapping the left arm. So get those in the right place and make sure that that negative space looks correct. We're going to get a new drawing here. All right, and so this one's terribly difficult. Don't even attempt this. You would just mess this up. You would be wasting your time. So go to the next drawing. This one's okay. It's got a lot of foreshortening in the legs, and these are overlapping each other. It's not the best pose. Let's go to the next pose. This is good. I like this. The bench is simple, but we've already kind of drawn a pose in this attitude. So let's see if we can find another one. Don't do this. This is one of the reasons why I'm coaching you all today, is because when you're using these sites, there are better or worse poses. This is fine. This is good. We've got 4 minutes and 50 seconds. So we go back to our drawing application. I'm going to give myself a new frame. And again, it's the same process. Start with the head. So drawing the head. The head has got hold on. The head has got a lean, she's leaning backwards, drawing that oval. This line of action is very subtle here. There's not a lot of power. She's in a very static kind of pose. So just let it be a simple arc, just a simple arc. It's just driving the main form. You can see that there's a line of action for her neck right there. Get the shoulders lined up, and the hips are always contraposto. Contraposto. Sorry, this isn't taking all my lines. Contraposto. All right, so line of action for, actually find the torso. And remember, the torso can either be a beam, but when you're doing life drawing, sometimes it's fine to find the pillow shape that is the torso. And again, what you want to do is you want to stop and say head measurement, so overall torso measurement. And it's often the case that the torso is 2 heads tall. In this case, it looks like a little longer than 2 heads tall. So compensate, trim off a little here, put in the deltoid. Put in the deltoid, put in the line of action for the left upper arm and the left lower arm. Put in the line of action for the right arm, and it's foreshortened. So just leave it sit there. All right, then the line of action for her right leg, and that's 2 parts. It's bent. So don't try to do it in one, just do the upper leg and then measure. The knee is right about the bottom of her neck. And so it comes up about right there. And look at this angle of attack. So just put it in like that. Now, because she's leaning back, you're going to need to draw some sort of the rock. Just draw something to let everyone know that she's leaning on it. All right, and then that's the line of action. So then give form to the quad, the hamstrings, and then get the foreshortened other leg in there. And look at the negative space for this foot. And then look at the alignment of the toes. So they're almost straight. It's leaning a little bit to the left. So, and then once you draw this little lineup line right here, look at the entire measurement. So this is kind of a triangular shape to the legs. I think that I might have made this, her legs just a little too short. Just in my first little analysis, I think that her left foot comes out about here, or right foot, and then her left foot comes out a little further. So this is a good analysis. And so the lineup lines for her breasts and her nipples are not horizontal. They have just a little bit of an arc to it. Remember, contraposto is the opposite of the shoulders and hips. Let me see if I can find. There was one thing that I thought I posted. Oh yeah. Oh, no, not this one. So this one's really good for showing just some very loose sketches. They're very character oriented, character driven. There's a really great efficiency of line here. They look like they're in the correct proportion. This is great. And all of the references coming behind it are great too. But what I wanted to show you is this. This, I believe, is Tom Bancroft. Just showing you that the pose of the character on the far left, where the shoulders are parallel with the hips. And then in this contrapposto, there is tilt to the shoulder opposite of the hips. And then in the next one, he's showing it that there's also a twist in there. And so this is a great, great example of contrapposto in motion. Remember that contrapposto was a term given to us in the Italian Renaissance. Asymmetrical arrangement of the human figure in which the line for the arms and shoulders contrasts with the hips. And here's just a really good example, contrapposto. Got it? And I don't speak Italian, so there's another drawing that contains the contrapposto. That's what you're looking for. All right, we should have another drawing coming up here. All right, so this is a classic pose. This is really great. So again, I'm just showing you examples here. And we're going to use the same process. We're just going to start with the head. And remember that once you start drawing the oval that is the head, that sets into place the whole entire measurement. So we're looking at a basically 8 heads tall. So if you wanted to make a mark down here, this is kind of where her heel is. She's got most of her weight on her left heel. So her line of action then is a very gentle arc. Her shoulders are skewed because her arms and shoulders are up. So just go ahead and draw in the bean shape. All right, and what I see here is that there's a slight bend to the back, and that there's another line of action that can be driven right through the entire upper torso to the left leg. And I hope you can see that because she's got most of her weight on the left leg. So then do contrapposto. This is definitely tilted to the right. And then so the hips have to be opposite, and indeed they are. And then figure out your mass. Figure out the upper torso, figure out the line of action for her left upper and right upper arm. Look at the triangular space that it creates. And just get that blocked in. Draw a little bit of volume for the deltoids. Remember, don't draw perfect spheres because the deltoids are not perfect spheres. And even in this drawing, you can't see them. All right, so then figure out your mass, figuring out the line of action for this pose. So for this leg. So this leg has inside and outside curve to the line of action. So it is like this. And in animation, we can sometimes exaggerate that just a little bit. If you're comfortable with the line of action having that kind of look to it, you are indeed allowed to interpret it. All right, so then there's a lineup line for her breasts, which is definitely bringing in the contrapposto about halfway through the form, just a little bit. All right, and then you can start making this 3-dimensional. You can start putting in the sternum. You can start putting in the rib cage. You can start locating where the belly button is. Start looking at bony landmarks, starting to find where the pelvis is, and just put it in as a triangular shape so that you can locate the ball joints for the top of the femur. Remember, the femur is the biggest bone in the body, and it is about half the length of the entire lower leg, maybe just a little bit longer. And locate the knees, seem to be sort of parallel here. And then the tibia, fibia combination, which way is her foot pointed? Just block in the foot as a little triangular shape. And the same thing with the other leg, the other foot, just as a little triangular shape. Quads are always outside curve to the femur, inside outside curve for wherever the kneecap is, and then a very slight outside curve for the tibia muscle. Your lineup for the calf muscle or soleus is always an outside curve, inside curve to the back of the knee, and then draw what you see first. Remember, you're trying to draw exactly what you see. All right, this has only got 20 seconds more, and we're getting most of the pose here. So again, what we did is we identified the head, and all of a sudden we said, this is how big our drawing is going to be. Head, drawing the mark for the bottom, line of action, get the torso working, get the contraposto working, get in the volume for the main torso as a bean, or whatever it appears to you, as a pillow, whatever it appears to be, and then get that measurement working. This is a good sketch. Lines are a little hairy, they're a little bit inefficient, but it's still fairly accurate. This is good, right? Study this before you even start drawing it. This we might want to pass on because this guy's head looks really big. If you can see that, you know, if I measured this and I put a mark at his chin and just went, okay, this is his head. There's a next head, that's 2, 3, 4, 5.5. And because he's bent a little bit and there's some great muscles there, and because he's got a lot of hair up here, this 8 heads tall guy looks like he's 5.5 heads tall. So even though this is a good pose, this right arm is foreshortened. But you may want to pass on this unless you are going to really study the musculature in the quads and the musculature in the soleus you might want to pass on that one. This one, you know, I'm not buying it. This one's good. You know, the measurements look good. So we'll go back over to here. Let's just use the same. So let's start with the same thing, head. And the line of action here, let's do this one. This one's interesting. What we're going to do is, what we're going to identify the neck, because she's kind of pronounced in pushing her, making sure that that she's looking at the camera. So what that happens is that the line of action for her torso is like this. So that line of action is like this. It's just a simple arc. It's not a compound curve. Most of her weight is on her left leg. So set in the line that is the contraposto for her shoulders, which is a line about like that. And then it's always opposite for the hips. It's not completely opposite, it's just a little bit more flat. Oops. All right, and then once you set those, get the thing that is the pillow or the bean, however you want to think about it, into place. Just get it in there. And stop and measure it. Look at it. Her head is almost 2.5 tall for the torso. So that is about correct. And then once you've got the correctness for the attack on where the pelvis is, just drawing that triangular shape for the pelvis so that you can locate where the hips are, because you need to know where the hips are to generate where the femur is. Her right femur is where you can see that there is a straight quality to this, especially with the shadow, but there's a nice little arc here for this leg. Remember that most of her weight is on the leg that we can't see. So this one, it's just got a simple curve like that. But the thing is that she's up on her toe. And so head, and then if we were to measure down here, which the foot we can't see, it's also covered up by some cloth, is just about that tall right there. So just about that tall. All right, so then, and we've got a nice curve to the back, outside curve. Let's look at where the knee is. So the knee is about right here. Again, generally the femur, from the proximal end of the femur to the distal end of the femur, is generally about the same distance as the proximal end of the tibia to the distal end of the tibia. The femur is just usually a little bit longer, but they're close. So always error on the part of the femur being the biggest bone in the body. All right, and then so I'm not drawing a line of action for the foot. I'm just drawing that little shape in there so I know where the parts go for the heel, the kneecap, the hamstrings, the inside curve for the back of the knee. This is the calf muscle or the soleus. And then always make sure that the ankle is nice and trim. All right. Arms and legs get skinnier as they go out. They get thinner as they go out. So just keep that in mind. The away leg now, the quad for the away leg, it's just hint at it. It does cross over from being foreshortened by the right leg, and then you can see a little bit of it here. Just hint at it. And then the other foot is here. She's got both of her arms behind her, but we can see this arm, and there's a nice, draw the sole, and then just a simple line of action. All right, then line up where her breasts looks like they're pretty parallel, and they're about right here. And so draw those in as three-dimensional forms, just as spheres. It is creating a very nice silhouette on the left side. All right, then you can just block in her hair. So just block it in. And again, I'm going slow and being didactic in measurement and everything. But this is technically a 2-minute study, even though I have it set at 5 minutes. All right, we're going to get our next drawing here in a moment. You know, whatever, it's Atlas. If you wanted to do something like that, it would be fine. Let's go to the next one. It's an okay pose. It could look funny as a drawing. Just from my experience, it could look funny. You know, this is good, so let's just stay with a classic pose like this. So once again, we have a slight rotation to the head, slight to the right, and then there's a nice line of action for her torso. Oops, sorry. Come on, Toon Boom, respond, there we go. So once again, there's a nice line of action for her torso. Get the neck in there. Sometimes the neck doesn't borrow the same attack of the line of action that the spine does. So sometimes drawing your head and the neck and the line of action and figuring out that she's got most of her weight on her right foot, right? Got most of her weight on her right foot, which is almost directly below her face. So in your drawing, the right leg, the right foot should be right underneath her leg. And you should see this line of action and see the line of action that makes up her right leg as well. All right, same thing. We're looking for a pillow. We see that there's this kind of shape. And now I'm kind of adding in the contraposto as I'm doing this. So I can see that is the line for her shoulders, and this is the line for her hips. And then the line of action, let's locate the hips first. Line of action for her right leg is just like this. It's just kind of gentle. It's more pronounced in the left leg. And she's got most of her weight on her right foot, but both feet are flat. One foot is coming towards us. The other foot is going away. All right, so the more time you spend on this kind of setup here, the more accurate your drawings are going to be. All right, line of action for her left arm. Up, and it's breaking away. There's nice negative space over the top of her head. The line of action for her right lower arm is here, and very nice hand. So you can study just the fingers and just draw in that vase. You draw a center line for the vase. Make sure it is symmetrical. Start looking at her anatomy. This is the line of action, but there's a medial line that goes down the middle of her form where her sternum is, her belly button's located. And so that helps you define where Her breasts are going to be here. Draw in the sternum, draw in the clavicle. You know, we're not going to test you on sternomedioclastoid mastoids, but they are there. I think the head might be tilted just a little too much. Drawing the medial line is the middle of the face. There's volume, so drawing the volume for the deltoids, the biceps, the triceps, the ulna muscle, the radial muscle, all the bones in the wrist. Look at this wrist as opposed to this wrist. It's got, they're very much in opposition of each other. Then look at the negative space. Her right arm is nice and big right there. All right, and then there's a little crease right here between her skin and her glute. All right, and then this is the volume for her upper right leg. Locate the knee. The tibia is the straightest bone in the body. There's an outside curve for the, what we can see of the soleus, just a little bit of it. And then a very nice inside, outside curve for the hamstring on her right leg. Drawing the foot just as a triangle or a wedge. Get the right leg in there. All right, and as you're practicing this, I think that you can also let your duration be a little longer so that you can just study the form. But this is what we're looking at just in terms of head, correct measurement, contraposto, getting the line of action in there correctly. You don't have to draw the line of action in a different color. Most of you will be doing this digitally. All right, so this is, again, is a good pose. So let's go through this again. All right, start with the head. So her head is here. I'm gonna actually draw this a little smaller. Head is right here. So there's a direction for the center line on her head. And I think I exaggerated mine just too much, so let me fix that. Her head is mostly straight up. It's just cocked a little bit to the right. Now, her line of action is very pronounced here. It's a very backward C shape. So get that in there, that line of action in there, and test it. You know, make sure it goes down far enough. Again, in any pose, look at the contraposto in the hips and shoulders to this pose here. Get the shoulders in there, and the hips are just very much like that. And then draw in the, now she's got like an hourglass here. So again, resist drawing two opposing triangles and draw in more of an organic bean. And make sure that you've got the right volume. So there's a nice volume for her legs that's right here, and you can see it. There's a relative straight quality to her back. A line of action for her right arm is here, and it's resting on the corner of this foam mattress thing, which is lined up with her feet. And so you can just draw that in there. And then the upper arm, the lower arm is here, and it's for shortening her breasts, and her hand is here. Her left arm is counteracting that and coming across the top of the foam. Negative space here, I exaggerated mine just a little bit. So I'm going to trim this down just a little bit. All right, and then locate where the pelvis is. The pelvis is here. And then this femur is coming towards us, outside curve, quadriceps, and going backwards. So there's a nice little line of action there. Outside curve, inside to the back of the knee, soleus, and the triangle that is her foot. And then measure this. I think that I kind of didn't exaggerate this enough. This leg goes further to the right. further to her right, further to our left. Their left leg is just kind of straight and ends up over there. All right, let's block in her hair. And just check the overall measurements. Again, I think that this is just a little too much of an outside curve, and I just didn't measure it quite as accurately because I was trying to go a little bit too fast. But as soon as I get this measurement correct here, and like if I took this all the way down to just a rough and made a new color, and then took the alpha back up on this, made it a little darker, then I can go back in and just kind of study what's going on with outside and inside curves. There's, something just really graceful about the way that outside to inside curve transitions into each other. Making sure that I'm looking for a line that would connect the top of her head to her hip, and seeing that her shoulder doesn't even come anywhere near it. So if I wanted to make a correction, the shoulder would be in a little bit more. This, which is her latissimus, would be in just quite a little bit more than that. And I might have started the drawing just a little too small. All right, so hopefully I'm giving you all the idea of the approach here. Where do you start and how do you do life drawing so that it is as accurate as you can get it, as quickly as you can get it? All right, we're going to get a new pose here in just a moment. Too dark, chiaroscuro for sure. It's really great if you were doing a study in light. Tenebrism almost, and a term from the Renaissance. And it's a great pose. I don't think I need it. If you're going to do this, you'd want to maybe do twice the duration. This is that same guy, and he does have a big head. One of the things I would always do in my life sessions is mention to everyone, hey, you know what? If this guy is short, or it looks like he's got a big head, he's going to have a big head the whole day, the whole time you're drawing him. So just keep that in mind. So you look at his head, his measurement, and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5. So he's either short or he's got a big head. My guess is that he's just a short guy. All right, so this is a good one. So we'll start with our rough color. So we'll start with his head is in profile to us, and we'll just kind of get that head in there. And then as soon as we do that, we're going to measure to the weight is on his right foot, but there's also some weight on his left. So he's balanced. He's not moving around. The weight is about right here, but this is a great line of action study. He's got a pretty good pillow shape. He's got a very identifiable neck, and the form that is the pillow of his body is not quite a bean, it's more like a pillow. It's looking like this. So, I don't see that bean. I'm not going to go for a bean. I'm drawing more of this shape because that's what I see. And then the line of action for his torso, it's very subtle. It's kind of like this. So don't push it if you don't see it. So locate the pelvis. Looks like I might have drawn mine just a little high. I'm going to lower it just a little bit. And locate the bony landmarks that are his hips. That's what you're looking for. You got to find those hips and measure as accurately as you can. Now you've got a outside curve and an inside curve to his lower foot. Remember that it might be good to find out where the toes are. So on this line, this toe is about right here. And this one is about right there, which creates a triangular shape. And we're pretty good right there. So outside curve to inside curve, just a really gentle, oh, I did it backwards. Goes the other way, it goes this way to this way. You can see that. This is the sartorius. The sartorius muscle goes from the outside to the inside of the knee. It's very pronounced right here. All right, and then he's got a little bit more volume and mass for his quads. Locate the knee first and the other knee as well. It's pretty straight across. And this is the opposite. So if this line of action is subtle this way, outside to inside curve, it's opposite, outside to inside curve. And I'm just pushing mine a little bit, but it's definitely moving that way. He's got his arms coming from the deltoids going up, and this arm is going right to his head. And then the other one has negative space, so that's going up, straight up, and then on top of the other one. All right, and then look at it, just, you know, because you've only invested a minute or so in the drawing, and look at your measurement, and looks everything good. So remember, this line of action, it's this way, but it's subtle. And the line of action for the foot, the right foot, it's inside to the main form and then outside for the lower and opposite on the other side. So it goes inside and then outside, inside curve and outside. And that gets you your pose. That gets you most of your pose. All right, and the whole point that I'm trying to make with driving this example after example after example is that if you don't get this right, you might as well just stop. If you don't get the head to the measurement of the neck, to the shape of the body, identifying the line of action for the main torso, identifying the line of action for the legs and for the, if you don't get this right, you just stop. You know, you can pause your drawing and study it just a little bit more, but you are looking for accuracy. You know, this one's good. This is very good. It's studying the back. There's lots of things to think about here. So let's see what happens if I pause this. No, I don't want to exit. All right, so we have this set at 5 minutes. Her head is impossible to see. There's all kinds of hair up there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to get the head, it's straight up and down, and then find where her line of action. Look at this line of action. It's just really simply going to the right. But I'm going to start it through the top of her head this time, and then just get it to go to our left, her right, just a little bit like that. And I'm going to study this and make sure that this is correct. All right, and then she's got a definite bean shape. I want to make sure I get it in the right place. Contraposto, her shoulders are pretty straight, so you can let those just be straight, but her hips are canted to the right. All right, locate where the pelvis is and locate where the right and left femur are, and it looks like they're coming together. So the line of action here is inside to outside. And again, this is the line that is like the middle of the pose. So when I say inside, it's an inside curve to this line, and then the lower leg is an outside curve to it. And she's standing about that tall right there, inside to outside curve. The same kind of thing goes with the right leg, but it's just a little more subtle. Inside to outside curve. And her feet are together. She's got weight on both feet. So I'm just drawing the deltoids very lightly. You know, the darker you would draw in the deltoids, the more dangerous of looking like a tinker toy, and you don't want to do that. All right, so then look at the line of action here. It's just a gentle curve. So mimic that. It's just a gentle curve. And then this one is very subtle. It's almost straight. Hands kind of curve in towards the glutes, and then start blocking in your volume. Outside curve. Minimus. Locate where the, sorry. Locate where the knees are. Triceps, elbow, ulna, radius. Fingers are long. All right, then the right side. And the feet are really hard here, so you just have to study them for a moment. All you can see is the heel of the left foot and just a little bit of the heel on the right foot. There's a tiny little bit of open space down there. And then there's a really great shadow for her cheeks. Really wonderful little shape right there. We got 1 more minute on this pose. So this line of action that goes down the middle of her form here kind of mimics that crease in her skin right here. And there's another crease here and another crease here. They're kind of pointed at each other. All right, and then get her, and then finally get her hair in there. I would just kind of block in her hair. I wouldn't really want to study it because it doesn't have a really lot of great form to it. It's a great pose. It's very difficult. It's very challenging, but there's too much foreshortening. If you wanted to try it, you could certainly try it. Let's go to the next pose. No, it's okay, but there's too much stuff overlapping. A lot of times also what I will do is I'll be looking to see, is this a pose that one of or another characters in a story that you might be drawing take? Is this a good story pose? You know, oh my God, you know, don't kill me with that knife. You know, this is a good pose, even though it's kind of intermediate to advanced because there's a lot of stuff overlapping each other. You know, it could be good. Let's just pause that one and go to the other one. You know, something like this is very difficult because the weight is on this piece of fabric. And, comma, once again, I don't see that you could borrow a study of a life drawing pose like this for anything that you would be doing in animation, unless it was a very strange story. You know, this is okay. You know, I don't mind the props, but look at it. The arms and legs are foreshortening the body. One leg is foreshortening the other. It's kind of a rather difficult pose. You know, this is good, but it's a little hard to see because it's small. So this sketch daily thing here probably might not be the absolute best. You know, this is great. You very rarely see overweight models in your life drawing classes. And so try this. You know, definitely a bean shape there. Definitely a bean. And you're going to need to draw that chair because most of the weight is going into the leg of the chair that you can't see. All right, so at this time, what I think I want to do is I want to see if there's another website. There was one called Artsy Posy that was pretty good. Let's see what this one looks like. When I was doing this, when I was still in animation, there were, like I said, there were probably 10 or 15 websites, but now there's just a whole mess of them. It's funny how Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook are taking over the whole world. All right, let's take a look at this. These are in seconds, so let's just set this to 180 seconds. This one's got, so I'm just seeing quickposes.com, QP. So this one is saying show the drawings upside down. I've heard of instructors doing this. I would say don't do this. And we get clothes, so I want to stop this. I want to stop this. We want the nude form. All right, so this is not giving me anything what I wanted. Let me go backwards. Let's see if we can restart this. It says partially nude. So you know, I might not like this. If you feel uncomfortable just with the drawing the nude form, or some people do, you could try this. I'm not crazy about it. All right, this one's called Figurosity. Oh, and some of these are actually kind of good. They have 3-dimensional. So I'm going to set this one at, oh yeah, this one doesn't move around. Some of them you can move in 3D. All right, so this one's not great. No, hold on a second. Maybe we went to a different part on this website. So I wanted to do, this one just totally, completely caught my eye here because these are really, really great just gesture studies, right? You can see these right here. There's just, like, oh yeah, those are what we're looking for. And then as I come down here, Conti is, you know, it's a French company that makes charcoal and drawing instruments and stuff. But these drawings are Ryan Woodward. And so what I could do is I'm gonna stop this for just a moment, and we're gonna come back to that for just a second. But what I'm gonna do is so this 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, this is much more interesting to me. This is much more usable for animation. This is what I'm looking for, the head, finding those lines of actions within the different forms. This is exactly what I'm looking for. I would like 10 of these for next week. So, but remember, you know, life drawing, some people can spend 30 minutes. So if I said that would be 5, 6, 7 hours worth of work, I'm only looking for a couple hours worth of work. I'm looking to see that you have got the head, the line of action, the shape of the body, the line of action for each part, and the silhouette and the weight correct in a 2 or 5 minute pose. So this is exactly what I'm looking for. Just this right here. You could take a screen grab of it if you want right now. This right here is exactly what I'm looking for. And then there's examples of it that are similar. This is great. This is exactly what you're looking for. You can't, if you can't get past this stage in life drawing, then you should just start a new drawing. This has the head, The line of action, the volume, the rhythm, the negative space, the measurement is all set up. 2 to 5 minute poses, 10 of them. All right. You know, some poses can be 30 minutes, 40 minutes. There was one artist that I was referencing in my life drawing class, and she was blowing everybody away. Her drawings are beautiful. Her name is Juliet Aristides. And she wrote a book. The book is beautiful. Classical Drawing Atelier. Where is it? I don't see it. And the drawings that come out of this book are just astonishing. They're stunning. And then you realize that in the description of the drawings that she's doing, even just the one that is the cover of the book, this is a 25-hour drawing. You are not doing these kind of life drawings for me. The thing that you need to all be studying is head, line of action, contraposto, making sure that the body is the right shape, that the measurements are the right shape. Tips of the fingers usually come mid-thigh. Where is the weight? This is a wonderful drawing that I'm looking for, the kind of drawing that I'm looking for next week. I'm not looking for anything over 5 minutes, just 10 drawings that are somewhere between 2 and 5 minutes. The better you get, the faster you get. Your gestures should be down to a minute to 30 seconds. You know, you've just seen Ryan Woodward's Thought of You, which is a complete 5-minute master's program study in the line of action as animation. It's beautiful. This is what I'm looking for, to making sure that you have all these parts correct. And again, we'll spend a couple weeks on this. At least 2 weeks doing life drawing. And then what we're going to be doing is taking the life drawing mechanics that we've learned about head, line of action, volume, rhythm, to character design, which you should be carrying over from the animals and the horses that we've just done, and applying it to your own character designs. And then from those character designs, we'll be doing, I don't know, I haven't figured out the story yet. We'll be doing a story and thumbnails for a short story. So that's how we'll wrap up the class here. All right, so 10 drawings for next week. Everyone got this? Remember that some of you are missing a lot of work. And so I just put in a brand new assignment area for late missing redo. I think it's right here. No, wait. I forgot where I put it. I put in a new late and missing assignment area so that I don't have to keep scrolling all the way to the left. It's the one that's listed as late missing redo. It looks like this: late missing redo revision. And that's available from today all the way till April 30th. It didn't go all the way to the end of the semester, but a bunch of you have to get caught up and get some sort of partial credit for the work that's missing. So use this folder and make sure your files are named properly so I know where to put your points. All right, does anyone have any questions? Head, line of action, volume, rhythm. Legs have their own line of action. Arms have their own line of action. That last drawing I showed you is really great. Let me, oops. So I'm gonna click on this. And it's coming to us from Pinterest, so I'm gonna pin that to the storyboard. So that one's in our storyboard. And you all have access to that. And so I'll put that in the chat area as well. 10 5-minute poses for next week with emphasis on the measurements. Each hand, each arm, each leg, the body has its own line of action. Make sure you get the weight correct. Make sure you get the measurement correct. 10 of them for next week. Except for Lauren, she's got to do 30. What?
Wait a minute.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. 40.
Oh, that's better. There we go. A nice even number.
That's right. No, 10 drawings for next week. Make them great. Make sure that what you're doing, make sure that what you're thinking is that these should be part of your portfolio, your website. You know, you should be able to take these and go, I'm learning how to draw. I'm learning how to draw accurately and with measurement and anatomical precision. If this was a medical illustration class, these drawings would have to be perfect. For us in animation, there's a little bit of wiggle room, a little give and take, emphasis on weight and inside and outside curves. Okay, anybody got any questions? 10 of those drawings for next week. And your sketchbook drawings, as always. Again, this, a couple of you need to get caught up. Make sure that you put any drawings in that new late and missing folder.